we got another update for the Morpheus build, the 914 with the LS and the turbo. The turbo install turned into an engine rebuild. So I did talk to him, and he's got it on his list, and he's going to get it done hopefully this week, and then we'll get going on that. In the meantime, I've got a lot of the things that I've been working on, and more to work on. So a couple of the things that I needed to get for the engine were the timing chain, and this is the Summit one that I can do degree for the cam, advance it 2, 4, 6, maybe even 8, or retard it to change it for high RPM and low RPM power. So basically adjust the RPM range. So I may do that. It gives me that option. So I needed to get some wiring done, and it's all down the center console. So I decided I was going to pull the seats out, and I didn't really have any choice. I had to do that. So I pulled the seats out and got the center console out of there, and then I decided to pull the firewall out. And this firewall is made of fiberglass. I decided to go back with a steel firewall since I had the piece from the donor car, and so I had cut that firewall in half, and so I ended up having to weld it back up. But I think that's going to work. So one of the things there is that it doesn't have near as big a hump in there as the old firewall did, and that old hump.
What hump?
And it was to create a room for the water pump, which I'm not going to run anymore. I'm going to run a remote. So the probably will need some massaging, but for the most part, it should work as is. I'll have to do some rework here at the top. You can see there's a gap there, and so I'll probably have to put some sheet metal back up at the top there. With the wiring accessible, I have a couple of things that I did. I ran I created this fuse blocks for the new pumps that I'm running. So there's the intercooler pump, and then underneath here is the sump pump for the oil pickup out of the turbo. So for the intercooler pump, I ran a wire up to the front and put a toggle switch there that'll ground it, so I can turn it on and off as needed. And I may put a temperature switch in there at some point, but for now it's just going to be manually on and off. For the sump pump, the oil sump pump, I actually put oil pressure switch, and that also grounds whenever there's pressure. So one of the other things that I'm working on is the use of a jump starter. These little jump starters are just gold. If you don't have one, you should get one, and get you out of a lot of jams. And for me, I used it whenever this engine was giving me problems, and that probably was a starter issue that I fixed late last year. But just the same, I want to be able to start it if I'm sitting out on the track, or if I'm getting ready to go out on a track, or have just gone to the store or something. I want to be able to start it and easily start it without having to unbuckle and do all that. So I'm talking about putting this just down here and running a cable to it, running the cable and adapting it to their connector. So we have one more pump that we're dealing with, and that is the Davies Craig water pump. And it is the electric version of a water pump that adapts to the front of the LS engine, or many engines. And it has its own controller that I made a bracket for to mount up here at the front. And also put a spot there for the boost gauge. These are adapters for the front of the LS, and they will run into Ys that 2 on the top and the 2 on the bottom, and ones will go to the output of this, and then this picks up from the radiator. But so that's finally determined what that's going to be. Some of you may have noticed I had galvanized pipe in there before, and that was just not going to stay. That was not happening. While I was trying to determine the clutch situation, my current clutch is a stage 3, which is 540 foot-pounds of torque. And so I decided to take one of my old stage 1's clutches and have it rebuilt by Kennedy Engineering Products to a stage 4. Now they're old. They have the old and new stages, so be aware that stage 2 used to be stage 4. One of the things that I wanted to mention is that these clutches, they have a puck clutch option, and that is a 795 foot-pounds of torque at the flywheel, which just to be about right. So I may have to do that. I really don't want a puck clutch, but we'll see. All right, so then I was working on the header. I had found a pretty bad crack in the bracket here, and it just kind of spread all over this header. I'll throw a couple pictures of that. While I was at it, I added a bung on the back here for the wide band. This other one is for narrow band. So we're going to do a manual boost controller to begin with. I bought these years ago to go on the 944. And so I'm going to try it again now that I have a little better idea of how it works. One of the things that I've been working on is the oil feed line, and this is the Lingenfilter adapter for oil cooler. It has an oil feed port there, and that will actually go right there with an 1/8 inch pipe. Well, these are 1/8 inch in and 1/8 inch out. What did I do with it? There it is. So this is 1/8 inch as well, and it's a reducer. So I don't know if you can see that. Get a steel on that. So I can either run it with it open at 6 AN or reduced, and I can drill it out if I need to be halfway in between. So that'll work. And actually getting a black version of that for the top. So here's the clutch disc that I'll be using. That's the one that I just put in. That was about a year ago, probably less than 1,000 miles. I did my attempt at polishing the valve covers or rocker covers, and that's, yeah, they're not great. I could probably put some more time into it and get it a little better, but good enough for now. Well, surprise, surprise, I'm making this update video, and I get a buzz on my phone, and so I just ignore it like I usually do. And I decided to check it afterwards, and that was the machine shop. Parts are done. So I'm gonna go pick those up, and I'll be right back. All right. So this is the new block. Not new block. This is my old block. They have honed it out and made it to the next oversize, which was only about 5 thousandths. But it was really not in bad shape, so it cleaned up real good. And he checked it all out, checked it for flatness, and did all that. And I think we're looking pretty good. And while he was at it, he determined that the rods were okay. The mains had some grooves in them, and so he took the mains down another thousandths, or another 10 thousandths. So they were at, mains were at 10 under, rods were at 20 under. So now they're both 20 and polished and ready to go. So that is good. Then the pistons, he changed the rod bearings out, and find the DS, what are those DSS racing pistons. These are the only ones that I could find with a 15cc dish and the correct rod length and the correct pin and everything else. Now even with the correct pin, it was still off about a thousandths and they wouldn't go in. So he changed the bushings and got the pins to work correctly, and they feel really good. So the next things we'll be working on is getting the alternator and the pulley for the alternator tensioner, because this was the one that was way up here, and this was the culprit for taking out the firewall. So I'm going to need to move this way down low and get it so that it'll still tension the alternator. So that's one of the things we'll be working on. You know, installing the pistons, gapping the rings, and all that kind of stuff. So we're going to be in pretty good shape here. I didn't mention that he balanced this crank. So that's what these little marks are for. And he said it took like 50 grams to balance it, which I guess that's a lot. But it's good now. And most of that is because the pistons are heavier than the Molly pistons that I had on there. Oh, I think that's enough for an update. That's a long update. Well, I appreciate you guys watching. So thanks for watching, and I really appreciate you know, any comments that you might have, any suggestions, and you know, click on the subscribe button and the little notification bell, and we'll send you updates whenever we get another change. These things will start happening fast, and as you can tell, this was a long update. I've been working on it for a couple weeks, so lots of stuff got done and lots more to do. Talk to you soon. Bye.